Hello, I'm Rex Basterfield, and this is a video about my Quilcom SIM-GTR or SIM-Guitar. That intro sequence, the music was created using 4 instances of the SIM-Guitar, along with Agus Hardiman's remarkable Monster Drums plugin. In addition to using the onboard effects, I also made use of Reaper's own cabinet sims, one for each guitar. I started this project nearly 3 years ago in February 21, and I had a lot of help from Toolamide and Matt Hebley to get the guitar behaving and sounding quite reasonable. However, I must say I was not completely satisfied with the sound, so I've held back releasing it and recently revisited it and rebuilt the sound engine, and I think there's some improvement at least. The original idea was to provide an instrument which just produced a dry electric guitar sound, like a direct input for you to add your own effects to, but I couldn't resist adding some additional items so that you can play it straight out of the box, so to speak. But if you turn off the internal effects, then you've got the direct input sound. Now, since I started this project, several guitar instrument plugins have become available, some of them free and all of them excellent, but they are all sample based. So if you want to have a synthesizer based instrument where you can tweak a lot of parameters, then maybe you'll find a use for this SIM-Guitar. The first 4 presets give you some idea of different tones that you can get, and they're all absolutely dry. The other presets have various effects added, and you're just hearing the plugin on its own, so I've got no additional cab simulators or EQ added or anything. So now I'll talk about the various controls, and as always the user guide I've written goes into greater depth than I will here. This section is where we set the timbre of the strings and the behaviour of the strings. Decay time is what you would expect. An open string on a guitar lasts a long time, up to 30 seconds according to my measurements, so you can have a very long decay or a shorter decay. The release time can be adjusted. And here you can set the response to velocity, the minimum and maximum excursions produced by velocity. The model is a 6-way switch where you can select from any of 6 different wavetable sets to give you different bass sounds. So as you heard, there are subtle variations in the balance of the partials, but also their phases. So if you're using several instances of the plugin, it might be best to use different models to differentiate them. Now we have 2 controls for changing the characteristic of the fundamental frequency F1. We have the level control of the fundamental, and we can sustain F1 if we set a short decay time. Turn the sustain on F1, and then the fundamental will sustain if you want to use that effect to simulate feedback. Now, I didn't really know what to call this knob, so I called it twang because it adds and takes away a certain quality to the sound which I find quite hard to define. The tone knob aims to simulate the tone control knob that you typically get on electric guitars, and it's simply a treble cut. Now, when I was looking into guitar acoustics, I read that the horizontal and vertical travelling waves in a guitar string could actually beat together, which I found hard to believe until I listened carefully to my own Strat copy. So the H and V knob sets the amount of interaction between those 2 waves. So now we'll talk about the pickup section. There's a lot of theory and information about pickup design which is talked about in the background info folder I've supplied with the download. Essentially, wound magnetic pickups have quite a limited bandwidth, and that affects the brightness of the sound. Also, at the bandwidth limit at the upper end, you can get variable amounts of resonance, and that can be caused by additional capacitors, etc., in the wiring of the pickup. The gap refers to the distance between the top of the pickup and the strings, and when the gap is larger, the sound is smoother and quieter. So the gap affects the volume, but also as the gap decreases, the linearity of the sound is affected, so you get a more sort of bright, more distorted sound because it's cutting the magnetic field of the pickup over a wider excursion. Now, I mentioned before that you can sustain the fundamental to provide feedback, but a better way to do it, I think, is to use the dedicated feedback simulator. So there are Three controls for that: the ratio, which determines the pitch of the squeal of the feedback. There's a delay, which delays the onset of feedback, and the amount. And this is an ideal candidate to be automated, so you have full control over it. So I'll leave the delay at minimum and demonstrate that. The feedback simulation is polyphonic, so if you play a chord, you'll get two feedbacks. Now, I've provided some key switches. If you click on this key switches label here, you'll get a reminder of what they are and what they do. The first one I'll talk about is key A133, MIDI note 33, which provides the option to palm mute when you press that key. And the time knob adjusts the decay time to simulate different palm pressures. And that is also an excellent candidate for automation, as are many of these parameters. Pinch harmonics are a clever technique guitarists will use to pluck a string and immediately roll the thumb to touch the string just after the pluck, so that you just get the higher harmonics sounding. Pitch sets the pitch ratio, and there are just three options for that, which are common harmonics to sound by pinching. The volume or level of the actual harmonics is considerably lower than the main note, so here you can adjust the level of the pinch sound. Key B1, MIDI note 35, if you press that just before you play a note, you will get the pinch sound, but you need to keep that pressed for the duration of the sound. You can use a continuous controller instead of a key switch. Just enter the number there, or in my opinion the best way is to use velocity. When you use velocity, the control is actually polyphonic, so you can play two notes and pinch a third note, and this sets the threshold of the velocity, which brings in the pinch sound. The zipper sound is what you get when the guitarist slides his finger over one of the lower strings, which is overwound, and you have a manual option here where you operate the slider, which is speed sensitive, and it's a great candidate for adding after your recording with automation. You can also select bend down zipper, and the slider becomes inactive. If you turn the level up, you'll hear the zipper noise when the note is bent down. Fret buzz is when the string bounces a little bit on the fret, and that can be when the guitar is plucked slightly perpendicular to the guitar body. It's a subtle effect, but if I turn the level up high and the chance to maximum, you will hear it every time at the beginning. And if you set it to a percentage, that's the likelihood of it buzzing, so it introduces a random element. The pick control is a macro which controls a little click from the pick and also the effect of harder or softer picking, so it's velocity sensitive. When the pick first strikes the string, in the very, very first instance, the string is divided unequally and makes what's called a chirp sound. And here you can set the level of that chirp, and it depends on the pitch too. So that's the chirp. And to hear this in isolation, if we turn the decay down to minimum, you can hear the chirp. And of course there's a random element there. This is where you tune the whole instrument. Semitones fine, and stretch tuning simply makes the octaves not quite in tune, so they beat very slightly to make it sound a little bit less sterile. If you wish to play chords, you'll need it to be polyphonic, of course, or you can switch it over to mono, which is possibly better for solos, and that means you can do this kind of thing. You also have key switches for hammer-on and pull-off. So I'll play 3 normal notes and then 3 with the hammer-on key pressed. And I'll do the same with the pull-offs. The pitch bend system has a few options, so I'll talk about those now. Bend up and bend down are separated, so typically when a guitarist deflects the string to one side, you get a maximum of 2 semitones bend up. But to bend down, the guitarist has to slide down the frets. The volume decreases as you bend down, and with fretted selected, it goes in steps as it would if you slid down a real fret system. Bend up can be smooth, which is normal, or you can change that to frets. Let's increase the range. And there are 3 modes available for bending up. There's all, which if you play a chord bends the whole lot. There's last note. And this is the highest note. And if you select all, and let's set a range of 7 semitones, you can simulate something like a slide guitar. If you want to introduce vibrato, there's the vibrato section here. You can set the rate and the range that will operate over on, the amount, and you can have a delay, and you can introduce it with key G1, MIDI note 33. Have the same options as with the pitch bend. You can modulate the last note or the highest note or all of them. Probably a better way that you may prefer and be more used to is to use aftertouch. or a CC number, number 1 being the mod wheel. And you can go wild with the amounts should you wish to. Or of course you could just automate the amount up. The swell system simulates when a guitarist uses a swell or volume pedal to fade in the sound after the pluck, so you don't hear the pluck and you get a more bowed string sort of sound. Now the swell system is polyphonic, so when you turn it on, any further notes pressed will have the swell effect added. There are two types of distortion provided. Drive goes from a very soft saturation up to something very distorted. And clipping is hard clipping. And you can have both on at once if you wish. The echo module is very simple. I won't bother to describe it in detail. You can synchronize it should you wish to, or have a free setting. And one thing I should mention here is stereo, so we can alter the delay between the left and right channels whilst keeping the timing constant. We have my favourite reverb, which is Martin Vichanik's Mverb 7B. We have a recorder in case you want to record samples, and the volume control, and that's it really. So there you go, that's my attempt at simulating an electric guitar, and it won't sound as good as a sampled guitar, but you've got a lot of flexibility, and the results will depend on automation, playing the right notes in the right order, and I hope you have a bit of fun with it, and until the next time, bye!